Hello and welcome back to the Tuesday Checklist, the weekly show where we take inspiration from a recent or upcoming release and then go off on completely unrelated tangents for 20 minutes. We've kept it topical this week though, as this is a momentous day, the final episode of the final season of The Walking Dead. Arguably one of the most emotionally impactful stories in gaming history. We're finally going to see the end of Clementine's journey and we can't quite believe it. I don't quite know how we're going to cope afterwards, if I'm honest. With that in mind, we got to thinking about all those times when video game endings were so emotionally raw, they left us needing closure. I'm up first with an all-time favourite.
Okay, so a time that I felt I needed more closure than I was given was at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, which, to be fair, does give you a lot of closure. That game takes all the narrative threads that have been running throughout the series and ties them all neatly into a lovely little bow and puts that bow on a ship, and that ship sails off into the sunset, and everyone was quite happy with.
I was just thinking that when you mentioned it, I was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh wait, there's that thing."
Yeah, with the way Metal Gear Solid 4 ends. I'm going to spoil it now, obviously. Solid Snake in the game, his aging has accelerated because of a number of factors, but mostly because he is a clone of Big Boss. For story reasons, that means his body ages quicker than a normal human being's body. So he's only about 42, but he looks about 72 in the game. Also, he's got the Fox-Die virus still inside him from the first Metal Gear Solid, which is obviously probably not very good. It probably means he's going to die at some point. And at the end of the game, after everything's done and finished, Big Boss returns and does a lovely little father-son speech with Snake, where they sort of put the past behind them. Big Boss lays down by the boss's grave, the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3, and peacefully passes away. Snake, just before this scene, had been contemplating suicide because of the fact that he was worried about the Fox-Die within him could possibly cause a global epidemic of Fox-Die, and obviously that would be bad. But after his speech with Big Boss, Snake decides to sort of live out the rest of his days, however long they are. I don't know, and that's what I don't know. Like, we don't really know. It sort of leaves Snake there, and I'm not complaining about the ending at all. I think it's a good ending, and I don't need to know what happens to Snake, but also I do. Like what did happen to him? Does he actually succumb to the aging? Because through the whole game, Otacon they were trying to find a cure, not really a cure, but something to help his accelerated aging. Does the Fox-Die virus kill him?
Rob, I've got a question, which is, as someone who doesn't really understand Metal Gear Solid or anything you just said, isn't there, I'm assuming that Metal Gear 5 is not then just a continuation of this story?
No, Metal Gear Solid 5 is set in...
Come on, Nate. For sake.
But there could be, in a few years' time.
What, more Solid Snake?
Yeah.
I don't.
Be him just at the mall.
He's like a barista.
I always imagine him kind of just going on finally just taking his piece, and he's just like on vacation somewhere, and Otacon's his bro, and only he knows where he is.
I mean, it is deliberately left open, I think, to fan interpretation of what happened to Solid Snake after that. The heavy implication is that he did not live long after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4, and whatever he did with his remaining years was nice and happy and peaceful. But it just leaves a tiny little door open for, could he have got better? Could they have found a cure for Fox-Die?
No.
Could he have lived for another 30 years after that? You just don't know. And normally I would just be like, oh, that's a nice ending, let's leave it be. But Solid Snake, I journeyed with for so long. Like, I kind of want to know exactly what happened. And I know that there is no real thing that happened. Hideo Kojima just made the whole thing up, because that's how stories work. But
Shut up.
You've unravelled the video a bit there.
You'll be telling me Star Wars isn't real.
Also, I felt like I could do with more. Like, I want a definitive answer to what happened to Solid Snake. I would love to know.
So I'm going to kind of cheat, right? Because there is a game that I really, really want closure on, that we've been given closure on, and I reject the closure. Like, I I don't think it's good.
Can't do that.
I didn't want that ending.
Yes,
Maybe you should
exactly.
write a petition to the developer, Nathan, and change by DLC.
I think they've moved on to different things. And so I'm talking about Resistance, Fall of Man, Resistance 2, and then Resistance 3. And I have enjoyed all of these games. Resistance Fall of Man was like a really interesting alternate history launch title shooter for PlayStation 3.
It's the first game I played on PS3.
And I loved the style of it. I loved the sci-fi-ness. I loved the alternate history stuff. It was kind of like a John Wyndham influence thing. It was really, really cool. Aliens have been on Earth for longer than you think. The reason that Russia was isolationist in the early 20th century is because aliens, the alien virus takes over humans and turns them into like enemy soldiers. You're like a GI from the States. You come over to Europe and you try and fight the alien threat. It's like a cool idea. I liked it a lot. Launch title, so it's like, oh, the next one could be amazing. Resistance 2 came out. And you are still Nathan Hale. Oh, one of the most depressing things about Resistance was that you got sent for like processing, like conversion in Grimsby, because because it's all set in the north of the UK. Resistance 2 comes out. And the idea is that, like, as someone who has been given this virus, but you're like the alien virus, but you're kind of resistant to it, like you're now part of a special forces unit, where they're like trying to use the alien strength against them, and it's much more of there's still kind of a bit of Wyndham in there, but there's also a bit of like Lovecraftian, like you're beginning to get weird sensations from like another alien place, and the idea is kind of revealed that the Chimera have maybe been on Earth for millions of years and they're like intergalactic travelers. And obviously, like, the risk is Nathan Hale people keep on saying to him, you should really go and get some inhibitor treatment, because you know that alien virus which is boiling inside your body and threatening to take over at any moment. And he's like, oh, I should just go and help these people first, or do this mission. And so by the end, massive spoilers for a game that's actually quite old now, over 10 years old, Nathan Hale just goes full alien crazy, looks up to the stars and is like, it's beautiful. And then the guy you kind of hate throughout the game, who's also on the special forces team, just shoots you in the head. And then that's the end of the game. And I was kind of like, man, I wonder how they're going to pull that around so that Nathan Hale in the third game is going to be like the hero and we're going to kick the ass of all the aliens. And the answer is, you're the guy you don't like through all of Resistance 2. You end up being Joseph Capelli.
But you do like him in 3.
Because he's like grown out his hair and he's like wearing a lumberjack shirt. Like, it was a complete, like, I really like Resistance 3. In many ways it's like the best one. It's like the most fully realised. It completely changes tack. So it's like this completely American story. Like, the other ones have lent really heavily on like Europe and European science fiction even. And like number 3 is like travelling across America to blow up aliens, and is much less like the whole virus thing just isn't really like a thing anymore. He's like a family guy who has to leave his family. You travel across America, which is like this old American story of having to like travel across the continent, and to destroy the towers which, you know, the ancient ones planted there ages ago or whatever. And it was, look, it's a good game, but I wanted what happened to Nathan Hale, and for that not to be,
got shot in the head, man.
You got shot in the head, and that was the end. Like, you can't leave me hanging on for like 2 or 3 years and then go, oh yeah, that was exactly what you thought it was. That person are dead.
You just like a nice memorial service maybe for Nathan Hale.
No, in the same way you want like Old Man Snake to be serving ice cream in Milan or something. Like I want my story of Nathan Hale to continue, and to find out that, you know, the whole thing is like, with that whole infected with the virus thing, is humanity versus like the alien influence. And what that game tells me is that the alien influence like won and that humanity lost, and Nathan Hale had to be shot in the head. I'd like that not to have been true.
So Shenmue, yes, a game that I first played when it first came out, back on Whisper, the Dreamcast, back in the year 2000.
Make it sound more exciting.
I know. You can now play it on PS4. Yes, it came out in the year 2000. At the time, I don't know if you guys know this, it was the most expensive game of all time.
Wow.
And I remember
Which was it?
Reading it. It was very expensive for me at the time. I actually got it for Christmas in the year 2000. I knew that it had big promise to be like a massive story, an epic story. What I didn't realise at the time is that that story was intended to be told over several games, not one game. So imagine me setting out. Shenmue is the story of Ryo, whose father is killed right at the start by this kind of evil Chinese martial artist called Lan Di, who's looking for something called the Dragon Mirror. And I'm pretty sure that you have no idea that your dad was even like into dragon mirrors. You know, you're like, you literally come home from the shops one day and this is all happening. He does have a dojo in his house, but this is all happening in the dojo, and you're just like, Dad, what the hell? What's this mirror stuff? Who's this Lan Di guy? What have you got into? And he kills his father right at the start, and Lan Di escapes, and the story is basically seeking revenge, trying to piece together what's happened, who this guy is. So imagine me being well into this story, slowly piecing it together, and the game ends. I did not know that this was going to happen. I knew it was going to be a massive story, and like I had already put in, I don't know how many hours at this point, and the game ends with you setting sail to China, to Hong Kong, to follow Lan Di. And yeah, the game ends. So luckily there was a Shenmue 2, but unfortunately for me, the Japanese version only came out on Dreamcast, not the North American version, the English version. So I didn't get to play it until last year when it came to PS4 at last. But that still isn't the end. At least I knew by then that Shenmue 3 is in the works and it's supposed to be coming out this year. So I know it's not the end. But Shenmue 2 ends in the most strange kind of ambiguous way, whereby I've said it's a story about a guy trying to track down his father's killer, and I did say that there's a dragon mirror involved, but apart from that, it's kind of quite real world, you're like, there's martial arts, there's not a lot of kind of like magic or anything like that, although we are dealing with, like, he discovers a phoenix mirror as well, and kind of discovers that these two mirrors are supposed to be able to kind of bring them back. Revive maybe, this kind of ancient order. Reincarnate maybe, this ancient order. So there's obviously like an element of the supernatural. But at the end of 2, it just doubles down on the supernatural. You get to a small village in your search for Lan Di, and you find a woman who has been appearing in your dreams since the first game. And it turns out that her family are kind of like really largely linked with this phoenix mirror that you have, and she's like, come and meet my dad at the quarry. And you go to the quarry, and there's a note and a sword, and which basically reveals that this is destiny happening, and that the girl has to go with Ryo, and together they have to like complete this quest. And the sword is kind of magic, and Ryo combines it with the mirror, and this whole ancient mechanism starts. And then there's a passage which is really on the nose about how like this force from the east will cross the sea. It's Ryo. He's come from Japan across the sea, and he doesn't know the strength he has, and blah blah blah. It's like it's kind of very much right, guys. You getting it? And it just kind of ends with with Ryo and this girl just looking at each other like, ooh. And that's it. And I mean, luckily for me, I finished this last year knowing that 3 was coming. I can't imagine what it was like finishing it back in 2001, I think, when it came out. And then they stopped production on the next one. So I mean, that is where it has been left for many people for almost 20 years. For me, it's only been left like that for a year. But I'm very excited. As far as I know, Shenmue 3 is wrapping up the whole story, this saga that was planned from right back in the late 90s. So hopefully I'm going to get that closure that I've been looking for.
Right, okay, so for my entry, it's for a series that I absolutely adore, and I'm a huge fan of it, and I've loved it since it probably first entered the PlayStation 2 life, and that is Sly Cooper. Oh. There we go, time to bring some Sly Cooper into the family land. Okay. Finally, it's time. Yes, Sly Cooper has had a little bit of a history with always ending on like a sort of cliffhanger type thing. For example, Sly Cooper 3, Sly suddenly, he's lost his memory, presumably after he's just had a battle, and then he kind of goes off, but it's like, is he still going to be a thief? Does he remember those days? But that's Sly 3. The most recent one, Sly Cooper 4 Thieves in Time, leaves, it's so, oh god, I just love this series. But the ending of Sly Cooper 4 is that there's this whole element of time travel in 4. 3, you've just kind of found the Cooper like Cove and all that like amazing treasure that they've stolen over the years.
Rosie really likes that treasure.
The hands of treasure. And then in 4, you're going constantly back in time to different ancestors in the game because their canes are being mysteriously stolen. So you're going back in time and all that stuff. And then in the final sort of battle, once you've got all the canes back, you're against the main enemy in the game, who's called Le Paradox. And he's like this very smart skunk. And he's created...
That's a whole spin-off series, Smart Skunk.
Smart Skunk, Sly Cooper, Smart Skunk. And he's created like this big time machine again. Well, it's the same one, I believe. I can't fully remember, but it's on a blimp. And he's basically was so angry trying to get Sly that a mechanism in it breaks and he creates a massive black time rift hole thing.
Yeah.
So you're fighting Le Paradox, the skunk, and he's hanging off the blimp and he steals Sly's sort of parachute glidey thing so he can escape. Once Sly's just been like, okay, you're going to be better off in jail than dying, so I'll save you. He steals his parachute, and then he jumps off the blimp, but Sly is still on the blimp that's about to explode. So the blimp explodes, the Paradox is found in the water, but there is no Sly.
Ooh.
There is no Sly. But is he?
He's fine.
There is a secret ending. I know, so spoilers for secret ending if you do want to get the secret ending. It was on the PS3 though, so I think I'm kind of in the safe zone of... But the secret ending, you see Sly in ancient Egypt.
He's been thrown back in time.
Exactly, but it's like at what point in time? How's he going to get back? Because you could say, oh, the characters... Well, that's the thing, do you just wait? Sly would die if he just waited for millions and so years. But like Bentley, his best friend and the little turtle in the game, he has a time machine that he created after the cliffhanger in Sly 3. So he has a time machine, but like he said, he can't look for Sly because there's endless amount of possibilities, location, time, like...
That's a whole other game.
Whole other game.
That's where in time is Carmen, Sly Cooper.
Yeah, so it's like all the characters are kind of dealing with it in their own way, but they're all just waiting for Sly, but is he gonna come back?
Rosie, I have an important question, and it turns out I am very bad with dealing with cliffhangers, because I really want to know how he got his memory back at the end of Sly 3.
He never lost it, he pretended.
Oh my god! I'm so glad I asked that question.
Sly, he pretended to lose his memory so he could be with Carmelita Fox, who is the police officer cop, who is kind of like the cop robber arch nemesis type thing, but secretly...
That from Sucker Punch. They're just like, how are we going to deal with that? Let's just move on to whatever the next game is.
Well, no, because they're in the final boss battle in 3, and then he gets hit on the head, and Carmelita, she's like, oh, Sly, you okay? And he's like, oh, who are you again? That's when he's pretending he's lost his memory, and Carmelita says, oh, you're my assistant police officer, you're Officer Cooper. But that's all, like, Sly knows he's not, but he's just doing it to be with Carmelita. And then he has that thieving itch again, so he goes back and steals stuff, Carmelita finds out, and then the introduction to Sly 4.
On another note, think that we should do a completely separate series of just Rosie summarising game series.
You know, that Rob, you're waiting for some closure you're never going to get. Nath, you're praying for closure that you're never going to get and that you've actually already had and you won't accept. Yep. And I am going to get my closure, I hope, because my closure is for the Shenmue series.
No, oh my god, no, you can't do this, Dave.
What?
I know I sport Life is Strange, but I'm playing Shenmue 2 at the moment and I have not got the ending. This is a series, oh my god, no.
Rosie, I'll give you the opportunity to leave the room. That'll be, you could leave the room, that's fine. You're playing it at the moment, then you maybe should.
Rosie's got a strange colour, everybody.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to leave the room?
Yeah, you can leave the room.
I'm running away.
You can escape now, Rosie, but we're still making you edit the video. Sorry. Let us know in the comments about any video game endings that left you needing closure. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you instantly know when a new Tuesday checklist goes live.
For the players.